Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 75 of Stat Check, some long name that begins with C about Cryptics and Canoptek Court and stuff like that.
No, you
But
don't. You don't get out of it. You got to say it.
I'm not saying that. That's not a real
Triple
episode.
C.
It's not a real episode title, and I refuse to acknowledge it because it changed without my knowledge. I hope everybody is doing well today. We do at some point. Jeremy dropped in very briefly for a second there while we were dropping the intro, which is why we're a little bit late because Jeremy had a bunch of stuff on this week that we'd like to talk about. So hopefully we'll have him joining us at some point. But otherwise, I'm Ennis. I'm joined by Nathan and Anthony, and we are here for the 75th episode of the show. We're going to be talking about all things Canoptek Court based on its doing at the weekend. It's changing quite a lot, all that kind of stuff. We've got, I think Nathan has the stats for the weekend. I think we're in the process of getting those sorted and delivered. And hopefully Jeremy will be able to talk about his experience at the UTC finals. And I also was at the Nottingham Super Major along with Tim Pinney, who is not here because he's on holiday in London right now. But I'll be hopefully talking about that a little bit. With that said, how are the two of you? Nathan, would you like to kick us off?
I'm doing pretty good. I had a 3-day weekend because of the federal holiday and mostly got to play Starfield and paint minis, which was kind of nice. So I painted up like another 1,000 some odd points of Eldari stuff that I had waiting to be painted, and then got 1,975 points of World Eaters primed and then Zenithald and ready for painting. Probably just in time for that army to get nerfed and to change radically in how it's composed, which is fine. But like, it was really nice to crank out basically 2,900 points worth of painting over 3 days. That was really nice. I don't know. I haven't done that much hobbying in a while, so it was aggressively fun to hobby that much for a bit. Yeah. So that was basically my 3-day weekend. I didn't play any 40K. Maybe I could have. I stared longingly at like Age of Sigmar models because they are really pretty, but that was about it. How about you, Anthony? How was your weekend?
I went down to Texas to visit Michael Tempe, so that was sweet. Love that guy. Big shout out. And then my flight on Sunday got canceled because Texas doesn't function as a state once it's cold. So I left Monday instead, which didn't matter because I had Monday off. So that was cool. Hung out. Didn't do a whole hell of a lot. I did get my new Karn today, courtesy of Logan in the Discord. So this will be my beautiful new boy. I don't know how well that's going to actually show on camera. He's extremely well painted. I'll take some like decent pictures and post it in the Discord later. But it continues a trend of having, different models in my armies from different homies of mine, which is like a favorite thing that I get to do as someone that doesn't do any of their own hobby at all. Yeah. That was pretty much it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else like super exciting that happened. The new job's really dope, so that's been good. I started there last week. That place has been fucking fantastic to work for. Can't say enough good things. Gotta love a place that'll let you work 4 10s on like, 4 10-hour days on like 2 weeks in a row if you need like a Friday and a Monday off for a tournament, and you can use 0 PTO to do a European tournament. That shit is real hype for my lifestyle in particular. So big fan. Yeah, just a lot of like generalized good life shit going on. We get to, lock and load hard back into the 40K once we get a slate, and then Pyra, and then scrims, and then Eurotrash, then stuff, and then selection and Alpine, and yeah.
I honestly just want like a little thing that just tracks Anthony over the next 6 months and his flights to places.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty wild. Alpine being the same month as selection for our like, starting team for this year for Team USA is gonna be pretty nuts. Yeah, a lot of crazy shit kind of in the pipeline. I'm very excited to see where it all goes. Hopefully we get balance at a reasonable clip too.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what this slate has to offer because it's going to change like a bunch of stuff. Hopefully, maybe. Who knows?
I'm excited so I can stop writing shit army lists for a bit and write really shit ones.
Yeah, I would love to go back to Ennis plays real armies, not random shit with aircraft.
I mean, I don't know. I've also learned that I've been pronouncing Nottingham wrong this whole time. So, but
true.
Also, I've been pronouncing kettle wrong. So, you know what? Innis can do whatever he wants. If that's including 5 Storm Ravens somehow in his list because he manages to find a data sheet from Forge World that's a different one or something, like, go for it.
I just want him to finish an event undefeated. It's not too much to ask for.
I did that with 4 Norns.
Maybe that's the dream. We get some Norn point cuts. Innis gets to play Crusher again.
You know what? If they cut points on Norns, I would be pretty ecstatic. It would be fun to play.
I'd actually rather the alternative version where they give them the old Dima rule and they ignore terrain.
They won't do that, but sure.
Look, they
can go back to being the swollest Harlequins again. Like, that's what Dimacarons were. They were just the biggest, swollest Harlequins that ever could exist.
That's true. I mean, we know Innis loves Eldari. He has a whole army of them now.
That's very true,
yeah. He is now going to be a long-time Eldari player with his triple...
I played Eldar for a whole year.
Did you? When was that?
I got them in 2023, right? I was last year.
Yeah.
Oh, true, you did for a whole year.
Yeah.
This is right. Innis, why don't you tell us about your Nottingham experience, or however I'm supposed to pronounce that word?
Not at Nottingham. I did just...
I like how Innis has jumped on board removing letters from things more than me, apparently.
Yeah, so when I was in Nam,
but it felt like all the choppers.
Cut those letters down real hard.
Almost spit out my tea real hard there for a second.
Look, everyone's got their own Nam. Mine was Cherokee. Nos was a WCW. Yours was Nottingham.
No, it was definitely LGT 2 years ago. And
that's true.
Was that the one where you took GSC and you went like 0-5 or something? I can't remember anymore.
Yeah, I started 0-2.
No,
okay, that's what it was.
I went 1-2 day 1. I did not start 0-2. It's so much sadder.
The height was there's a brief moment of brightness after that 1-0 bracket, and then it went right.
No.
It was 0-1.
0-1.
Okay.
Then took my rage out on somebody, then got beat again and get some back into the rage spiral. That was the worst option.
Yeah.
Oh, Innis.
Tell us about
your super mate.
Sorry, I just sort of remember that Nas still had it worse than WCW because the LGT before I had my bad LGT, he did lose to Grey Knights Round 1. So, we're doing the thing again. So, Nottingham Super Major. It's a 360-ish player tournament. It's a mess, frankly. I think it's does that weird thing where there's way too many people for it to be a real tournament, and there's just like a massive amount of variability in who you play. Shout out to I want to say James McLeod, who played Vic VJ, then Dave Gaylord, then lost his game 5 to go 5-0, and it's like the heartbreakingest of runs to like go through all of that to then lose the round 5. So there was a ton of people like that who just like played incredibly tough runs, and then a bunch of people who didn't, because that's how you works when you play through just a tournament that has 5 rounds. There were 12 undefeated players, 10 of whom were 5-0, and 4 of them got to play the top cut. And it's a really stupid format, and I really don't like it. And it really should have just been 300 player tournaments. It really should have just been 300 player tournaments with 3 top 4s and 3 winners, and just been 3 events. And that would have been great.
That would be,
but
really
it's not
cool.
that. So instead, it's a weird mess of a format. But that doesn't matter to me because I did not win 5 games. So who cares? Woo! So yeah, I took the Storm Raven list of this one. I was trying to do the whole get some extra points for best of faction Marines. Managed to fuck that by 6 points. Didn't even add to my score. I know, right? Heartbreaking. 55th was only worth 190 points.
At least you're in the. You did great. 55th. That's pretty good at a 360 person event.
I went 4-1. I was somewhere near the bottom of the pack because I had a bunch of close games because I didn't really have a great grasp on like how to play my list in terms of scoring primary against Necrons and Eldar, which I played twice each, which was interesting. Trying to figure out how to hold an objective with like 5 scouts against a squad of 6 wraiths is an interesting question that I'm not sure has a real answer. Besides engage sadness, and the same thing against Triple Night Spinner.
You also kind of lost that Heartbreaker by like 3 points was the loss that I saw.
all of my games were like super close, except one which was a bit of a blowout, and it was priority targets where a monkey could have scored 45 primary, so it wasn't that impressive that I managed it.
Yep.
Yeah, 6 objective priority targets in round 3. So I scored 50 primary that game. The only one where I scored above 40, which is a worrying thing to be doing with your Redemptor Dreadnought list.
It was good.
Yeah, I'll talk through the games like a little more specifically after we've done like the stats and stuff like that because it's a bit more interesting. But yeah, I had a heartbreaker loss against Guard in game 2 against what is turning out to be just like the player that I crap the bet against, Jamie Malcolm, who just like he's the guy that I played on Conquer a couple years ago when I was learning my GSC army and like massively overpushed, and then he played it well, and I like had a terrible like heartbreaking loss there as well. That was before the LGT where I then had the more heartbreaking losses. So he's just clearly a herald of change. I'm not playing Marines anymore because otherwise I'll just start losing it. I'll have my next event after losing to Jamie. So yeah, it was interesting to play the Storm Raven. The thing does so much damage. It's incredibly rewarding to roll it. It's then the bit where you try to figure out how to ever use it. That's the difficult part. I was really struggling to position it to like get it to shoot a second time, which is when you build your list around a model kind of a thing you want to be doing.
Yeah, at least.
But it was very fun. Yeah, picking up like a full squad of immortals and the characters with guns to spare after split firing. Or a full Demon Ross with just the multi-melta, things like that. Good fun. I enjoyed that.
Seems good.
It's pretty fun. For 240 points, it's hard to complain about it, especially if you're playing on boards that can like actually just support it moving, which is not WTC. Don't try it on WTC.
Somebody is going to try it anyways on WTC.
You're going to get put on a heavy. You're going to get put on a heavy board, and there's going to be 6. And there's going to be 6 of the large ruins, and you're not going to be able to move it, and it's going to be your own fault. And don't go complaining to Kit Hannah.
Yeah.
All right. Do we want to talk very briefly about stats, most of which are depressing?
Let's
quick?
very quickly touch on Jeremy is not going to be joining us. He's decided that he is not in the right headspace to be talking about the UDC finals. We will hopefully have him talk about it a little bit more once he's a bit more removed from the situation. But broadly, there's more details in Discord. If you want to hear it, join the Patreon.
I mean, I can just read this part of
Don't
it.
don't do it. No,
Okay,
patreon.com/statcheck. You want to know more? You want to know more about this? Us being incredibly cryptic about the Cryptic stuff? Yeah, I can tie into this. I can tie into this name as well. Patreon.com/statcheck. Pay us $5. Go and read this event right now.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about stats very briefly. We haven't quite gotten the weekly stats done yet, which is just how it happens sometimes when Jeremy, our major stats gatherer, has a tournament on weekends, especially one that involves like significant travel like this last one did. We'll get that ironed out a little bit, but suffice it to say, Necrons did really well. Of 25 person or higher 5+ round events, they won 4 out of those 7 events that we would have normally tracked. So they won over half of them. If you track everything, like for GT sized events, it's like 6 out of 12 or something like that is what I saw. So it's like half, but it's slightly over half in the 25 5+ round events that we usually track, including winning the largest event of the weekend. They won Nottingham. They also won the UTC finals, Hypercrypt listed. So, like, yeah, a Hypercrypt list won one thing, and a Canoptek Court won the largest event overall of the weekend, which is saying something. As Ben McJurek says in chat, strong but not dominant. We'll
just run more chainswords, guys. I promise it actually does help into Catan.
Yeah, so we'll just like we're gonna have to keep tracking the data for like another week probably to get kind of like a really clear picture. But it does look like maybe, unless the nerf to devastating wounds for immortals like just seriously cuts the entire Necron index in half, which is index wraiths basically at this point, which I doubt. We're probably in for a long haul with Necrons, at least for a little bit. I don't know what year
2 weeks before we have the balance data slate and everything changes.
Pretty straightforward to fix them, to be fair. Like Wraiths and Satan are undercosted. If you fix those 2 things, there's not like that much crazy shit going on now that the Dev wounds got nerfed.
True.
I broadly oppose the idea of units that can 3-inch deep strike then move 6. in Hypercrypt with like Tomb Blades and such, but that's more of like a
Yeah, and
fundamental
Chronomancer units, but like other
fundamental
stuff,
choice of existence.
Can
yeah,
we
that's just
talk
like
about
stupid shit.
Can we talk about kind of how that works real quick? Because I think that has to do with the most recent FAQ, right?
Yeah, let's actually just talk about the FAQ a little bit. That's probably makes sense. So, the Necron FAQ came out recently, and the main two things that came out of it, there was some weird thing with the detachment that nobody's read. I'm sure Goonhammer will have all the details about the Triarch detachment if you're really interested. But the main things, the stratagem eradication of Cynosure or whatever it's called, Cynosure eradication, that was the give your Cryptic units weapons devastating wounds, worked in range or melee if you're in your army's power matrix, which is basically if you controlled half the objectives in no man's land, your units could get devastating wounds. It was a battle tactic, which meant you could do it for 0 CP off of a Lord, and you could do it on a squad of Immortals who could be equipped with Tesla weapons, with a Plasmancer, getting 4 rerolls to hit, exploding 5s, sustained hits 2, and then full reroll to winning his units on objectives. And they were very capable of having what was effectively a 140 point unit with characters pick up a Land Raider in 1 activation, which broadly I would describe as not great for the game in terms of having units punch within their weight class. Yes, it was a lot of CP investiture.
No, it wasn't.
It was a lot of like
0.
It was a lot of investiture in like things into one specific gimmick, but it was powerful when it went off. It was possible to play around, but not easy to play around is the kind of general description, and the kind of thing that broadly shouldn't really exist in the game. You should not be, losing a Land Raider to the equivalent of, an army's basic troops for the sake of having stood on an objective and then spending a 0 CP stratagem. Battle tactics are a mistake. So that got removed. It's now Cryptic and Canoptek models only. So the best use case is generally going to be wraiths in combat, where it averages roughly 4 mortal wounds, 4 devastating wounds, 6 devastating wounds if you're in your full reels, which you obviously will be to be using it, which puts it roughly on rate with grenades, right? You spend 1 CP for 3 more wounds of grenades, you spend 2 CP for roughly 6 with a bit of more spike potential there. I think that's fair enough. It seems like a very reasonable stratagem there. People will complain because they're comparing it to the Immortals version, but such as you can't change the past. The other thing that changed is the confirmation that the hyperphasing for the Necrons, which is the ability that lets them pick 3 units up off the board at 2,000 points, it's obviously less at lower points values. You can put them into strategic reserve, which by the core rules, if a unit that goes into strategic reserve has the deep strike rule, you can place it using the deep strike rules, which means that you don't have to follow things like not coming in on turn 1 or coming in off a board edge and so on. So things like the Nightbringer don't have deep strike, but the Transcendent Catan does, and there's like upgrades you can give and things like that. However, there's a stratagem in the detachment called Cosmic Precision, which allows you to effectively 3-inch deep strike anywhere on the board. And the FAQ confirmed that the specific wording of that stratagem overrides the need to come in from strategic reserve, so you're not required to place within 6 of board edge. You're not required to follow like the turn 1 limitation if you were set up off the board, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to bring in a unit from strategic reserve. So you can have things like a 3-inch deep striking Nightbringer. You can have a squad of Tomb Blades that don't really have deep strike arrive 3 inches away from your opponent and then use their move 6 after shooting to steal objectives and all that kind of thing. It's like having really, really annoying Inceptors that also move. It's very unique. It's the only thing that it's one of the very interesting things about Hypercrypt. And as far as I'm aware, it's the only instance of a unit that can both 3-inch deep strike and move. Because I don't think GSC have access to that, and
Grey Knights can.
Grey Knights can do it with Interceptors, but it's Interceptors will see 1, which limits it a little bit. And also Grey Knights kind of suck. Whereas in Necrons, it's a pretty Tomb Blades are already a pretty solid unit, and then adding that to them makes them very powerful. We saw one of the Team England boys, Chris Kinnear, playing 3 squads of Immortals with Chronomancers and 3 squads of Tomb Blades, and his only loss was to Josh Roberts on Necrons, doing the same kind of thing.
And then Nottingham had that FAQ in effect.
So they were using the FAQ, but not the errata, because the errata came out after list submission. So they were saying, yes, we'll confirm that, yeah, that's how Cosmic Precision works, but the rules update was out after the submission. It was out after pairings were up. So it was just kind of like sorry, like we can't change it now. It's a bit late, which is understandable.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think the biggest kerfuffle was with LVO, who apparently are using both pieces like the day after list submission or something like that was the biggest online kerfuffle that I saw.
It was the day before.
The day before, yes, rather, the list submission. I guess like The only other thing I saw that came out of that errata was that Tau players were starting to say that the teleport homing device on stealth suits should work the same way or something like that. But I don't know. It seems good, the ability to deep strike anywhere on the table and be able to drop something like the Void Dragon 3 inches away from somebody. Or
The most funny aspect, the funniest use cases I've seen for so far are 20 warriors with a chronomancer, or a night scythe that then disembarks 6 rates in a technomancer.
I hate that.
I hate everything about that. Everything about that makes me upset deep inside. I won't lie.
You can do a Ghost Arc, then 20 Necron warriors, and the guy that attached them.
Then I guess the other biggest offender from Necrons is just Catan, generally speaking, since they gave them all the Feel No Pain, so they're all half damage and a 5-up Feel No Pain.
Yeah, they all went up 50% in durability, so they should all go up 50% in points.
I think that's fair.
There's no way those models should be less than 350 points. It's ridiculous, but such.
They're just following the Incarn model of pointing giant monster units, and the only person who decided to point them appropriately was apparently whoever wrote the Tyranids points.
And Mortarion.
And Mortarion. Sorry, Mortarion.
And Morty got fucking dealt, dude.
Yeah, I guess is there anything else kind of to talk about with that? Do you think that after both pieces go into effect, we're still kind of going to see them at kind of where they're at going into this weekend? Same kind of a general power level as people kind of transition to Hypercrypt, or are they going to be moving to something else instead?
I think Canoptek Core it kind of falls into the realm of the sort of general A tier. Like, it's a completely reasonable army that you can play, and it's fine. It does some good things. It does some things a little weaker. The nice thing about it is it does take attrition damage and all that kind of stuff. Same with any Necron army that isn't really Awakened Dynasty. So you can kind of force them to play a bit more of a game, and they don't do that much damage. Like, there are units that will do damage in the right circumstances, but Catan are generally pretty slow. Even if they do a ton of damage when they get there. And then you have Hypercrypt, which I think is like an A+ army. Like, it's a bit better. It definitely has, all the tools to win a game, to win a tournament. But again, the damage output can be a little bit lacking under the wrong circumstances, unless you get all your stuff in the right place. It kind of does the Grey Knight thing that the Team America list from WC did, where it just wants to kind of slow the game down a bunch and then deny you primary and all that kind of stuff, and then turn 4 and 5 have free reign of the board once you're committed, and it can measure all your threat ranges and do whatever it wants, while you have very little recourse because it has mobility and you don't at that stage of the game because you're all on the board. But if you can just get on top of it, force it to start playing its game, you can get through it. Like, it does have vulnerabilities, so I think they're just they're not Chaos Space Marines and Eldar, I don't think, for the Hypercrypt. Those are, like, in terms of general relation to the overall game. But we'll see what that changes after the balance is. Like, if they don't see any changes and everyone else gets nerfed, maybe they start being problems.
Makes sense. It's fair. And then World Leaders won their third GT. They won the German GT.
Fucking finally, boys, we're doing it.
They took down 2 post-nerf Canoptek Court lists on the way to get there as well.
They're very good into Necrons.
They seem like they'd be really good at eating Wraith units, generally speaking.
Yep. Like, correct. Most World Leader profiles line up rather good into Wraith units, especially in Court, where they're not they don't have the same recursion that they do in other like Awakened Dynasty, or like the stuff that Necrons were doing earlier in the edition. So if you just get to kind of like grit your teeth and fucking wail on them, the Necrons go away a lot fast at a much higher clip than the Eaters do.
Makes sense. All right, I guess we should transition into Innis giving us the lowdown on what your not ham experience was like, or he'll blink in and out of existence a few more times.
Yeah.
Oh no. What was Manny's list for Nottingham composed of, actually, now that you're just kind of sitting here?
I don't know. I just remember that it was worse, like, on purpose, because he's working on being more sportsmanlike or something.
Okay.
He cut the double juggernauts for 3 more 8-bound and another sort of jackals, and he put his second squad of berserks to 10 or something like that.
Yeah, it was weird.
It seemed to do fine. He won 2 mirrors.
Yeah.
Very skill intensive matchup, that mirror.
Yeah, that mirror is really a thinking man's game.
I always look at that mirror and I'm like, the hardest part of this feels like it's going to be keeping track of my units if they're painted red, and my opponents are as well, because it's just going to be 2 red armies, just mixing it up, painted identically in the middle.
It's actually keeping track of whose turn it is during the
Yeah,
fight
with all
phase.
the fight on deaths. It sucks so much.
You got to have one of those tokens that you hand each other at the beginning of each turn, just so you know. It's basically the talking stick, but you
Yeah.
make
You
it a
do
chain
a-
axe. It's the
You
talking
imagine,
chain
right,
axe.
right. You've got like a multi-combat, right, where you charge your unit into a unit and into 2 separate units. One of those units is in combat with 2 units of yours. You fight it, kill some models. They fight on death, kill some models in a unit that you're not currently activating. Those models then fight on death, kill a unit in a 3rd unit that's not currently fighting on your opponent's side, and you just build this chain up and down the line.
I think I just got.
I hate everything about this.
I just got a migraine, and I know why.
You could have models that are activating 40 inches away from the original combat.
Ines, why don't you go through your list that you brought to this ham tournament?
Yeah, so I decided to take a riff on Kit Smith Hanna's list from a few events that he played over in the States because it was super interesting, which is basically using the Ironstone detachment and its ability to make one model do a ton of damage with Mercy's weakness, and sticking it on the biggest guns you can find short of an Astreus, which is the Storm Raven, because it has like 3 big multi-damage guns and then 24 hurricane bolter shots, which is a lot of gun power coming out of a model that moves 20 inches. So it's a Storm Raven and 3 Redemptive Dreadnoughts as sort of like the general core of the list. That didn't change from Kit's version. And then I trimmed out a bunch of the like additional weird protection stuff to try and just add in a bunch more scoring options, which helped me score a bunch of secondary. Didn't help me much on the primary side of things. So, more to work through on that one. But I think getting used to my damage thresholds would help a lot more with that. And then I kind of just bulked that out with a bunch of support units. Azrael and Squad of Company Heroes just as a nice little objective skirmisher that gives you 2 CP every turn, so you can use it to kind of brawl in the midfield. I had a Talamaster and 2 Tech Marines, which are sort of your generic buffing units with the damage blank, the lethal hits aura, and the advance and shoot and fall back and shoot aura, just to keep your stuff ticking and keep your stuff alive. A solo whirlwind for my backfield, a Storm Speed or Thunderstrike as like a fairly fast unit that you can push up the flanks, and also has like a relevant damage boost into things like Catan. Being able to get +1 to wound into them really helps a ton in terms of making like all of your chip fire, like all your strength 5 and 6, like just do tons of damage to them. Being able to kill stuff like the Nightbringer or the Void Dragon without using your Oath of the Moment on them is super valuable when you're also trying to hunt down Wraiths or Destroyer Bricks and things like that at the same time. 2 squads of Scouts, 1 squad of Inceptors. I'm gradually becoming less and less enamored with Inceptors. Every time I use them, I find them more and more underwhelming for different reasons nowadays. And I don't know if that's just because people are getting more used to playing with them, or because I'm just finding other ways to use them, or I don't like throwing away 110 points for 3 points to deploy Teleport Homers sometimes. I don't know. I'm trying to work through that a little bit, but I would expect them to be going up in the data slate if I was a betting man, because
I would be fucking astonished if it stayed the same.
Yeah, because that unit is really good. I just really don't like it, and I think I'm having just real problems with the Marine Codex of just not enjoying the way it wants to play. And then I had a Callous Assassin and 4 Inquisitorial Henchmen, because sometimes your opponent doesn't have indirect, and you can hold your backfield with 4 Inquisitorial Henchmen, and it feels great. And then your Whirlwind can like drive up the board.
There's a really important question I think that just got asked in the YouTube by Atheric, which is how do you even move a Storm Raven in hover mode? Do you have to measure from the wings and parts that overhang the base?
Yeah, but thankfully on most terrain they actually sit over the top of it, so you only really have to measure the base, and you just kind of measure diagonal distances a bunch. Mostly it ends up being like this model moves 20, but you pretend it's like a movement 12 model, and you go up and down a bunch, and it basically works out. But you have to be like fairly careful with it. You can also advance and shoot with it, so you can often just like clip that last extra inch or two that you need to with the aura from the from the Talamaster.
Sure. Stupid. Dumb.
You can't get the Redemptor out of it afterwards, though, which is very
no.
My favorite combo for it was putting a Redemptor inside it and also 5 Scouts, and then you could drive it forward. The Scouts could get out the front of it after it moved, chuck a grenade to proc your Mercy's weakness, and then and then also like do your deploy Teleport Homers at the same time.
What does Mercy's weakness do in the current edition?
So it is sustained hits 1, but you have to, but only while you're targeting units that are below starting strength, and then sustained hit you get critical 5s if you're a vehicle.
Okay.
And then you stack that with the lethal hits aura and Oath of Moment and your hurricane bolters do 9 damage to a Catan.
You're making Anthony like real sad, and I can tell because he's like leaning further and further into himself in his gaming chair.
I just hate the detachment. I hate that detachment a lot. It's just how I feel. I'm glad it's bad in teams.
Yeah, I will say almost every single one of my games ended up being incredibly close. I had a 7-point win and a 3-point win against Eldar, a 3-point loss against Guard, and a 2-point win against Eldar. And then one game that I won by like 29, which was against Necrons. It was just very, very close games across the board. Mostly because, as I said, I didn't have a great grasp on how to score primary with it because I was playing one of those things that I tend to do when I'm playing a faction or playing an RE I haven't played a ton is default to a very defensive and like I'll win, like I'll hold off just now, wait for an opportunity and try to win the game in the late game, which mostly works. And then you feel like you drop one more primary than you expected, or you like miss a kill on something by like 5 primary and suddenly the game's really sketchy. Or
I think I'm just like way too anxious to ever play like that. I've never played a game like that in my entire life.
I did not enjoy doing it a single bit this entire event.
Yeah,
I was sitting there like, I really want to be doing something. I just don't know how to. But I'm like, I've deployed like 4 inches too far back to do anything because I like wanted to be out of threat ranges because I don't know what I'm scared of yet, and just like cowarded my way into like needing to like not draw a double dead card on turn 5 to win the game. And the one time that happened, I lost by 3 points, and it's just kind of like.
Yeah. I would have known what I was scared by the end of round 2. I might have lost those first 2 games, but
yeah, and I mean, I didn't lose after game 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my game 1 was into basically like a fairly typical Eldar list. It didn't have Fuegan or the 3rd Night Spinner, but it did have like all the standard like 10 Wraithguard, Ginkar, and all that kind of thing. That was Dawn of War, which was the big. I didn't get to limit test the Stormraven at all because it deployed and then he went first, and then Wraithguard were within 24 of it, and it never moved because they could see it, so it couldn't go forward, couldn't go backward because it was Dawn of War. So it just sat there and shot a Night Spinner that it could kind of see, and then died. And you know what? That was fine. That game, I think I grenaded 4 times and tank shocked 4 times. Just the only way I was interacting with Wraithguard was that, and then charging them with Redemptors. I don't think I shot them once and killing the full squad. And the highlight of that one was definitely the Talmaster doing 4 devastating wounds and another wound from the Heavy Bolter to the Incarn. But yeah, scraped that one through with 7 points. Drew capturing outpost on turn 5, which was a nice feeling. And then realized I didn't need it because I was able to get the other one anyway. But it was still just like, oh my god, how do I score points in this army? Playing Scorched Earth against Eldar against Wraithguard is horrible. I think I did like it was like a 5-5, 10-10 on primary with like maybe I don't think I got the 5-point burn. It's just like, oh my god, this is so sketchy. Game 2 was my game into Guard. This was a super weird game. It's Purge the Foe, and I went first, which is just kind of not where you want to be. I didn't get to really do anything on turn 1. We both deployed very conservatively. This was Crucible Battle deployment, so diagonal. I basically just fired my indirect at Creed Squad because I'm just like, if I fire at Creed Squad twice, there is a chance that with 1 more wound I will kill her. And I ended up getting her with that and my Inceptor Squad. I got her on turn 2 to like get rid of the overlapping fields of fire, which is the extra AP stratagem that's like the big pain point for me, losing Redemptor Dreadnoughts to Mana Cores and Tank Commanders. This was a 3 Mana Core, 3 Tank Commander, 12 Bullrun list, which is, if you don't know anything about Tank Commanders, they fire on death on a 2+, which makes it really, really awkward for mixed arms armies to deal with them because you kind of have to be pressing up the board at the same time as you're shooting them, and then you shoot them, and then they then shoot your melee presence. It's why I think like the Guard CSM match was actually a really interesting one because there's a lot of ways for the CSM to get punished if you're trying to play like your Forge Fiends are trying to kill things and also your Chosen are trying to kill things at the same time, and it can really stretch you on that. And then obviously Mana Cores are just a nightmare in general for a lot of armies.
What a stupid fucking unit.
Well, the Tank Commander or the Mana Core?
The Mana Core.
Yeah, agreed.
The Tank Commander is annoying, but like...
Yeah, it did not help that Jamie did not roll below a 4 on shots for his Mana Cores until turn 4. Just like, please, stop it. For what it's worth, though, he didn't do damage with a Hunter Killer the entire game, despite having like 12 of them. So
that's like the Hunter Killer experience, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
like...
it's not a Hunter Killer missile, not a Hunter Killer hit all for a reason.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I really like that, and that's what I'm going to use from now on. Thank you for that dad joke, Innes. I appreciate you.
To be fair, they were always hitting. They were never wounding. It was the wound roll that was the problem.
I don't get you.
This one was a really interesting game for the sake of he had double vect and he double vected armor contempt, and I was still using it every turn. Because I had actually I was like, no, I wasn't spending XP on anything else. Like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna keep armor contempt in case it is. Yeah.
That makes me so mad.
That must have been really frustrating for your opponent to be like, I've done everything I can to stop this from happening, and it's still happening. The whole
Shout out to the
game.
Redemptor Dreadnought that took no damage from 2 tank commanders because of armor contempt on turn 4.
So, but why did you? Okay,
So
what happened that caused you to lose this game,
the
though?
last time I played Jamie, I felt a little hard done by because I full court pressed with Gene Cult into a Custodes army in 9th edition and like full bounce. I killed like a bike and 2 Sagittarium with like a full Gene Circle army, including melee. And I was like, I felt hard done by, and then like I clung on by, and Jamie, like I spoke to Jamie about that game, and he was like, I felt like you were a little disingenuous with like how tough the game was. Like you very clearly messed up, and I'm like, I know I messed it up. That was not how I won that game. I'm annoyed that I did it and got punished for it. You know, like I had both things go wrong. I shouldn't have made the play, but also I shouldn't have got punished that hard.
Yeah.
But you know, it happens. Such is life. This one, I'm at the point where I'm now like, winning the game would have been less valuable to me than this story is now, and that's what I'm lying to myself about.
I like it. I like this lie to help you preserve. Your
Yeah, that's how I'm gonna lie to myself about this game in 2 years' time. So my turn 5, I am 17 points ahead going into it.
Oh, I hate where this is going.
There's no way he's getting hold more because I'm sitting on 3 of the 4 I'm sitting on 4 of the objectives, 2 of them with Redemptor Dreadnoughts, and 1 of them is too far away for him to interact with. So I proceed to draw my cards, and I draw Defense, Stronghold, and Overwhelming Force, and he has no units on objectives except 1 Manticore that's at 8 health that I can get Azrael's squad shooting, the 1 Whirlwind, and the Talon Master can get shots on it. And that's the only thing I can interact with on an objective, which I failed to kill by 3 health. The Manticore, I put 11, 13 hits on it with the Whirlwind with Mercy's Weakness, with sustained hits, and 1 wound, which he passed. That was very upsetting. And then started my Defense Stronghold. Now, my Whirlwind is sitting on my home objective on 6 health. If it dies to shooting, there's no way he can get on my objective. He's got a Calidus Assassin in reserve that's sitting 9 away, and a Sentinel that can charge me, but I'm like long ways off the objective, move blocking him from getting to the objective. So even if he charges me with his consolidation move, there's no way for him to get to the objective. So the only way he can do it is by getting Calidus onto it and then killing me exactly in combat.
Well,
and I have 6 health. So he fires a Manticore at me because he has to get me low enough that the Calidus will kill me in combat, and proceeds to wound 4 times. Got 4 up save, passed 3 of them. Should have command rerolled one of the saves here to try and fail it, but I hadn't realized it was quite this close at this point in the game. Passed 3 of the saves, took 3 damage. He then stops firing at me. If I had just died there, I'd have won the game because he wouldn't have got captured on the outpost. Instead, he then proceeds to charge me with a Sentinel and Tank Shock to try and do 1 damage, but not 3 damage because 3 damage loses him the game and does 1 damage. Then hits the 9-inch charge with the Calidus Assassin to get onto the objective. This turn, he had drawn Capture Enemy Outpost and Bring It Down, which was then another 12 points, because he, of course, proceeded to kill me in combat with the Calidus Assassin by rolling a 6 to wound, which not unreasonable. 5 attacks, 2s and 6s. He did 2, so like didn't have the CP for armor, but also my Overwatch did no damage. And I had a CP left, which I could have used to auto-explode to try and kill the Calidus, but my Overwatch did no damage, and she has 4 wounds. And I'm just like,
buddy.
Okay, cool. And then I lost my 3 points. Because I dropped Defense Strongholds, and he drew Capture and Bring It Down.
Warhammer!
I was going to say this list feels very vulnerable to deck draw. being bad if you take that tactic of going slow.
It was really tough watching the guard army that was as trapped in his deployment zone score 11 more points on secondaries than I did. Because the one turn that I put my Calidus in his deployment zone, he drew Assassinate immediately afterwards. I'm just like,
ouch.
Yeah, sometimes you get scammed.
Yeah.
So how
Live by the Yu-Gi-Oh, die by the Yu-Gi-Oh.
When do we get push Innis back?
when do we get an aggro
When
in
Space
it?
Marines have a detachment that works for that.
Yeah, but what if you just didn't play Space Marines?
Or
I
Tyranids?
don't know, man. I don't.
What about that Eldar army you got in boxes? Mind you?
Just anything the fuck else, man. Jesus Christ.
It was super interesting to play. Cool. So that was game 2. Game 3, I played into Canoptek Core, and this was the only practice game I played with my list. So I kind of knew what I was doing, and it was, like I said, priority targets, 6 objectives. So it was really hard to not score primary. We got to have the good old Azrael precisioning out a Technomancer, and a full squad of Wraiths charging a Storm Raven with the expectation of doing damage and doing 2 to it, which I immediately healed back to full on. That was good fun. That was a good old just Storm Raven flew about and killed like 14 Wraiths by itself, and then threatened the Khan with the guy that conceded by that point. Good stuff. Good stuff from the Storm Raven. Game 4, I paired into triple Night Spinner, triple D Cannon, and 10 Wraith Guard.
That's a lot.
I'm sitting here like,
I don't.
I just, as a human being, okay, I understand the concept of we'd like pushing this back. How am I meant to push into that? I don't. The game is set up right now to not allow not allow to like break my soul over how do you push into 10 Wraithguard and 3D cannons with Redemptor Dreadnoughts?
You don't.
It's just so I didn't. So I sat back and took a 5 out of 5 on Scorched Earth and watched him score a 10 out of 10. And I'm like, well, I gotta go make something happen now. So I went for the all-in on the Wraithguard and it worked, and I won by 2 points.
Man, I like it.
Yeah.
Worst ways to lose, better ways to win.
Exactly. It was the good old okay, let's measure every angle on the Wraith Guard, and I gotta just take this Overwatch and see what happens. And drove forward with the Storm Raven and took 2 damage on the Overwatch because I had I'd saved the damage blank through his turn and everything, and went for it. And the Storm Raven picked up 6, Grenade Shot picked up 1, so 3 dudes fired at Redemptor Dreadnought, didn't kill it, charged and killed them. Cool, we're okay with this. Obviously, he had burned his fate dice at that point, and like at that point, they were just rolling dice at me basically. Which, fine, cool, we can live.
Good
just
enough.
about. Yeah, that one came down to I had to not draw double dead cards, and the only thing that I could do was double dead cards was like maybe capture and storm hostile objective on 5, and I didn't draw those 2, and those were the only, like any other cards would have been fine. So I think I was okay in that one. But it was still a mess together.
Sounds like a fucking mess.
Yeah, and then game 5, I went second into Canoptek Court. I went second 4 times, which I did not feel great about. It felt like every time I went second, it was like, oh, I suddenly tracked on my deployments again, which is the good old Ironstorm thing that I was complaining about earlier. So, you know, maybe Ironstorm is just a terrible detachment, like Anthony says. And frankly, I don't disagree.
I don't know if it's bad in singles. I know it's bad in teams.
It's definitely terrible in teams. Every single game I played was like a 10-10.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's something to that, but it just seems like a large waste of Marines.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, this ended up being a super awesome game. I played this was just kind of one of those ones where it's 5 objective take and hold, and the Necrons got a 15 on turn 4 that I like, you know, I couldn't move a Redemptor Dreadnought forward because it would have let the Wraiths move further away, but then I had to shoot them to weaken them enough, and then I missed like the 6-inch charge with a reroll into them and just like left them on an objective that I really would have rather they weren't on, and gave them a 15 and like had to recover it back. But I had done a good job of like I gave them a 5 on turn 1, a 5 on turn 2, and then it was like a 10-15 from there, and then I got my 5-5-5-15. I just clung on the secondary scoring with Assassination on Homer. Taking a turn off Homers is really sketchy, but I had to on turn 2 because this list had the Immortal Bomb and then double Catan 12 Wraiths, and he was just push the Wraiths onto the 2 side objectives, held me down there for just long enough that I couldn't score primary off them, and then brought the Immortal Bomb out like on turn 3 to kill Azrael's squad, and then just like removed my pressure on that side of the board. Not a lot you can do about your pressure suddenly dying, and I'm like working through the 2 Catan in the middle in slow time without Oath of Moment, which is a unfun proposition, but just about worked out. They do not love like mass volume lethal hits and devastating wounds that like the general like Space Marine backfield tends to have, which helped a ton. So yeah, overall, I think I finished with like 400 and something, 409 total points on the event, which is reasonable. 4-1, so 55th of 360-ish players. I'm not unhappy with it. I didn't end up getting any points for Best in Faction Marines, which is why I played Marines at the event, so I'm a little miffed on that front. But it was great, obviously great to see everybody and watch Nas lose all his money at the casino and all that good stuff.
He's good for that.
He is very good at that. So
Get
yeah,
to
no,
see
it was.
Tim, like
I did get to see Tim. We got to go for dinner with Tim. We went to we took Tim to an American steakhouse, or sorry, American barbecue place. Um,
that's real funny.
it was really good. Um,
I'm not mad. I'm just confused.
I just enjoy it. I enjoy the American going to England to go to an American barbecue joint. That makes me happy deep inside somehow.
yeah, we messed up some steak platters, some platters. It was good.
Pictures of which you can also see in our Discord, probably. I think.
Yeah. So yeah, that was Nottingham for me. I know Tim went 3-2 for that one.
Yeah,
So-
Tim got a little bit scammed in his Canoptek court game, is my understanding.
Yeah, and then got Eldard. Tim's round 4 draw was like watching him get that at the restaurant on the Saturday night was hilarious as he reads the guy's list and it's like Avatar, Yinkarn, Triple Spirit Seer, 10 Wraith Blades, 10 Wraith Guard, and a Wraith Lord.
What a
It's just like this is terrible, but I can't punish this in any way, shape, or form.
I'm just gonna die to this. Nice.
Yeah, the good old phantasming Wraith Lord with Fate's Messenger, so it can use a natural 6 and your Fate's Messenger 6 to double lethal hits with Bright Lances on Overwatch is fun for the 12 wound vehicle army.
Yeah, fun is one of the ways of describing that.
Yeah, exactly. Fun, enjoyable, pleasant experience.
Meanwhile, the Avatar of Cain kind of comes in and does fun things to you as well, as does the Incarn. You know, just funsies, fun all around for everybody.
The whole family.
All right, do we want to... Yeah, I was going to say, Paint Celestine asks in chat, if you take the Ravenwing detachment with the detachment rule Masters of Maneuver and you have the enhancement Master of Maneuver, does that make you the Masterest of Maneuvers? Or Masterest of Maneuver? It makes you the Masterest of Maneuvers, plural.
I can get on board with that.
You're the Masters of Maneuver. We'll pluralize it the weird way. Yeah. There you go.
Oh, we're not gonna do we're gonna pluralize it in the odd spot. It means that you get a diploma in disappointment because you went to graduate school for your master's in maneuvering.
You get a diploma in maneuvering.
Actually, that's actually what the book is on the Talon Master, is their diploma in maneuvering. Rip Talon Master, if you read today's preview article and believe that it wasn't just a copy paste error on the Talon Master.
I hope it's dead. I hope it's dead so hard.
It would be very nice if it was just gone. I have a Talon Master. I'm okay with sacrificing him to the flames of please let Deathring Knights still be good.
Nah, they're gonna suck too.
I know.
They're gonna get heirloom weaponed, and they're gonna be like
it's gonna be
5-1.
sick.
They're gonna be like 5-1-2 or something.
5-2-1, baby. Get a
5-2-1.
cursed weapon.
Wow. I'm also not completely not anticipating them primarisifying the Talon Master so that you get like a storm speeder, but with a dude with a sword hanging off the side of it.
They should Yassify the Talon Master.
What I love it, Innis grabbing his mail off the top.
Give me this.
No. It's my notes for the plugs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We might as well do those right now because we're starting to drift off. Unless we want to talk about the Dark Angels previews very quickly.
No, I really don't want to. That detachment was really bad.
What? I thought advanced and no, I'm just kidding. We're not going to.
Why is the 1 CP stratagem for +1 to wound against character units only infantry and mounted characters?
It's the best. I fucking love that shit.
It's going to be another
wraiths, but why couldn't it just work against Catan, guys? Like, come on, you just printed Catan. You have to know everybody wants to kill them.
The Stormlance detachment all over again.
And if anybody on the planet has ever looked at Outriders and gone, do you know what I need is more than 3 units of these? I don't know what to say that can possibly help you, other than you should consider seeking out the Master of Maneuver to learn your lesson.
My real question is going to be when they come out with the language for the supplement is if I can take Space Wolf units in that detachment. Just, I don't know why. It just makes
you can get them all plasma pistols instead of storm shields, and then you can advance and shoot with all your plasma pistols.
Exactly, of course.
And then you can use all your once per game blood surges from your Jarls to get into combat instead of charging.
Is that what they're called? I feel like that's not the name of the unit.
Close enough.
It's close enough to our Viking
They're
our
called
Viking
Wolfguard
for
battle leaders
Yarmy.
on Thunderwolf, but Jarl is funnier.
Oh God, I think I would rather Jarl.
Yes. All right. And let's do the plugs because we're turning into some
Plugs,
silly
plugs,
things.
plugs, plugs.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us for the first 50 minutes of this meandering mess that we call a show. We hope you're all enjoying it as much as we are. I'm not going to say that I didn't wake up 7 minutes after the show was meant to be on, and that's why we were late, but it was actually Jeremy's fault. I was the second latest. If you're enjoying what we do and you want to see more of it, or you want to chuck us a subscribe or comment or any of the cool stuff, you can go on YouTube. Check out youtube.com/statcheck. That is the best place to do that, all of that stuff. We do our best to read all the comments. We respond to all of the ones that are on like the most recent show. If it's even vaguely a discussion topic, if you're just saying thank you, we're going to take the comment and high five, but we're not responding. We don't have time for that, apparently.
Depends on how long I've got.
Exactly. That's Nathan's
That's
one
me.
job. So if Nathan ignores you, know that it was him and that you can judge him as much.
It was
as you
also
like.
personal if I ignored you.
Yeah, it was also me. You can be mad at me for that too.
If you want
I've
to
never
argue,
answered
though,
a comment, but
yeah, if you want to argue in the comments, like we're down for that too, because like clicks is clicks. As we mentioned earlier, you should check out our Patreon, patreon.com/statcheck, where you can get access to all the wonderful stuff like our Discord, the discount code for Red Dragon, and pictures of all the stuff that Jeremy was complaining about at the UTC finals. You can also see Tim having a wonderful platter at dinner, or listen to Nassim and Liam Wiesel complain about different ways of falling through tables and tournaments, which was one conversation topic from today. The best way to fall through a tournament, as I'm told, is to make sure that you only hit if you just like elbow one model on the way down, that'll be the only one they notice breaking, and you can get away with all the other stuff because they won't see it. I'm pretty sure that's what Liam said. I didn't actually read the conversation, and it's funnier if I say it this way. You can also check out all of our various sponsors. We have Red Dragon, Will and Yutani, and Saltar Games. They are all doing wonderful things for us. Red Dragon, we have a discount code for in the StatCheck Patreon, where you can get 20% off, but they provide the usual hobby shop that does all your hobby needs. They've also got all of our stuff like dice, objective markers, and mats for StatCheck with all the branding on it. Will and Yutani, we have a code StatCheck5, which will get you 5% off on all your WC terrain needs, but they've also got a bunch of other stuff outside that, like GW terrain and objective markers and things like that. So do check them out, especially if you're UK or Europe based, because it's a much easier way to get terrain. Because it is really easy stuff with the flat packing and all that stuff. And then Salter Games on Etsy have got all the things like our tokens and measuring gauges and stuff like that. I gave Tim a grab bag of stuff to take back over to the States with him. I think he's got an extra Death Guard set and stuff like that to give away. So we'll maybe see about getting that done on XM1 because he already had one. Lastly, you can check out the other shows, Into the Matrix and XM1, who are both going to be so as we said last week, XM1 is moving to a monthly release schedule, at least until WTC. They will be coming back probably in the next couple of weeks to talk about Tim's Nottingham experience and a bunch of other stuff that they built up over the past month. And then Into the Matrix, which is the Teams Focus show, will be back presumably pretty soon to talk about Pyra and ITT and all that kind of stuff, because Nathan's going to be there and Typhus will be at Pyra and all this kind of great stuff, and Pumbaa's at Pyra as well. So lots of teams coverage will be coming in the near future as we start building up the WTC season. And then lastly, we do have our new show that will be debuting in February. We're almost at the point where I think we'll be able to tell you the name and like the idea next week, because it'll be hopefully out the week after that.
A slow drip of teaser.
Yeah, we're just gonna tease on that one until we're ready to commit to everything, and then we're gonna rug pull, and it's just Nathan reading medical journals and bread documents.
I will live read whatever you guys want. If you want me to live read medical journals, I'll read some science journals to you.
I think you should get Nathan to read all the articles he has pinned in his home bar.
Oh man, there are so many articles. I mean, some of these are webcomics though. One of them's Kill 6 Billion Demons, which is very good actually though, if you like webcomics.
And you can check out stat-check.com/coaching. There we go. Get there in the end. For myself and Typhus, if you're interested in getting any help at all with developing as a 40K player at whatever level of play you're doing, we're both very interested in helping you out and would love to hear from you if that's something that you're interested in. Otherwise, thank you for being with the show. The best thing any of you can do, as always, is to listen wherever you are, recommend us to a friend, any of that good stuff, because it really is the best way. I would like to say a massive thank you to everybody who came and said hi to me at Nottingham. I swear, and this is going to be like the stupidest complaint. Please, if you come and say hi and we have a conversation, introduce yourself to me at the end of it or like at any point in it, because I do not know your names. I know that that's a really stupid thing to say, but if we're having a conversation, if you just say hi, like it's fine. But if we like sit and talk for like 5-10 minutes, like tell me who you are at the end, because you probably didn't introduce yourself at the beginning, because the conversation started as, hey, I love the show, and then we started talking. And I know that's a stupid thing to say, but introduce yourselves. We'd love to know who you are, especially if you watch a bunch or you see us a bunch of tournaments.
Yeah, I love talking to you guys when you come up to us and say hi.
It's
great.
one of the best things that we do in this hobby, and I truly, truly love it. But yes, please just say hi. Please introduce yourselves. It's such a weird complaint to have to give, but it's not even a complaint. But thank you so much to everybody in the community. I'm sure Tim got, hopefully Tim got a bunch of people as well. What I know Tim got a bunch of was that Tim Pitty from X1 that they asked me. So I'm hoping they went and spoke to him at the end or afterwards. But
It's actually just Forsman. It's Forsman. No.
That is that guy, right? I'm like, yeah, you can go and talk to him yourself.
Nah, dude, it's Eric. Trust.
You can't do the in jokes thing again, man. We do that too often as it is. All right, we're going to now roll into the show questions. As always, if you want to get your question read out on the show, do either chuck us in the Patreon Discord or super chat at us on YouTube, and we'll definitely get to it. Otherwise, we'll get what we can in the time that we have. We've got a couple of highlighted ones to have a look at, but if you chuck us a super chat or it's in the Patreon Discord, we will definitely answer the question, unless it's really stupid. And I'm looking at you, Paul.
Or if we covered it already. Or if I'm feeling spiteful is apparently the other thing that I've learned. Or if I lose my reading comprehension abilities. All those things tend to happen.
Any of those could happen. So watch out.
Also,
imagine
before we
having reading comprehension abilities.
Yeah. I mean, that would be pretty uncommon for 40k people based on the rules discussions I've been seeing today. But let's
just today.
I mean, always, but especially today. All right. So
how does reanimation of reserve work, Nathan?
No.
Stop
it.
I had somebody. I mean, I had to have this conversation multiple times today about world eaters and blood surging when all the berserkers died and stuff like that. I'm just not no more rules conversations for today. All right. Richard Kilpatrick asks, I have a lot of Termagants to paint before an upcoming tournament. Is there anything you guys recommend watching/listening to while I power through? I'm running out of podcast backlog. For me, I like going into Discord voice chat and just chatting with people. I don't know what you guys like to do when you're painting like tons of identical models.
I don't have a use case for this scenario.
I mostly just like watch TV shows and stuff like that.
What do you do while grinding in WoW, Anthony? Do you watch the computer or do you play something in the background?
I grind in WoW. It's pretty straightforward.
I've not figured out how to play Marvel Snap and Paint yet. Sorry. So
you need to learn how to use your feet to play the game while painting with your hands or something. I don't know.
You should listen to the episodes of Stat Check. Yeah, and there you go.
Yeah, listen to our backlog. You can even go to our pre-Stat Check show and listen to that, I guess, as well.
I actually don't think that's on Spotify anymore, but...
Oh, well, then you can't do that. And
it might be other places, but it wasn't on Spotify when I had a look.
That's kind of sad. I'm sure some of that content was good. John Seibel asks, what's your funniest Warhammer?
Sorry, who Seibel?
Jason Seibel. Did I say John Seibel?
You did.
Damn. I'm having a really bad reading day today, guys. Jason Seibel asks, what's your funniest Warhammer moment? There are 3 questions here.
Funniest Warhammer moment.
I still think it will always be Anthony trying to convince me not to drop.
Oh my god. The fucking pyropod.
And then me convincing myself to do it despite Anthony very much trying to help me not make a mistake. That will always be funny to me no matter what.
There's a wonderful picture of the year we came third during our pairings against Poland, of our captain actively sleeping and drooling with us and the Team Poland guys clustering around him, pointing at him while he sleeps.
Nice.
We won that pairing. We're still shocked.
Guy was dead weight.
Anthony, do you have a funniest moment?
It's a nice mixture of spite and funny. So I'll probably go with KC teams. I was playing against Sean, and Sean and I are really bad about not playing quickly when there's no clock present. Like, we'll just bullshit and talk nonsense and not get anywhere. So we were like, hey, just making absolute certain no clock. And the person stood there, who will go unidentified for the sake of the story, was like, no, even if you put one down, we won't enforce it. And we were like, bet. So an hour and a half into the round, we finished deploying and did not finish that game. But we had a lot of fun fucking around and having some drinks and fucking about in that interim period. So yeah, that was it's not necessarily the funniest thing that's ever happened while I was playing 40K.
It's got to be the flip against Poland, right?
No, that was not funny at all. That wasn't even a little bit funny for me. That lives on in my nightmares and is the fire that keeps Team USA burning. Yeah, that was funny, like with the benefit of hindsight. But yeah, I think the funniest thing I've ever been sent that's 40K related is the GIF from Ultron of him going with the benefit of hindsight, and he's got a US flag on him, and then when the Hulk runs up and like punches him into the sun, he's got a Polish flag on his back. That one's pretty top notch. I could not find that if I wanted to, but yeah, those are probably the two things that have made me laugh, probably, like, if not the hardest, close to the hardest in 40K. But I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure there's other stuff.
We could probably do a whole bonus episode of just funny moments in 40K.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have a long storied history full of nonsense at this point. I'm about to do 3 tournaments in the next 3 months. Like, I'm sure it's going to be a mess.
Abaddon with 5 Terminators, yay or nay?
No, just don't hurt yourself.
The follow-up bit of this is planning a list and dropping 5 from the 10-man brick lets me take 3 bikes and Chaos Spawn for mission play.
This is a Hey Anthony Nightlord situation, it feels like.
Jason, buddy.
That's an answer enough.
This is for the practice weekend. Just DM me.
Bryn,
don't do this to Chris.
I guess we can answer this even without Jeremy here. Bryn asks, hopes for the Votan data slate. The win percentage seems to be dropping. I don't think Votan need anything at the moment, really.
They could probably do with like
buff-wise.
They could use a less stuffing.
There's definitely
Sagittars definitely should not be 100-point models.
Yeah, they knock those back to 120 and maybe we're fine.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I was thinking, I was like, they don't need any buffs.
Oh, yeah, no.
At most, they need a couple targeted nerfs.
Yeah, one less judgment stack at the start of the game, and Sagittars go to 120 and maybe see where we fall.
Yeah. Dan F asks, what does gaining the battle line keyword even do? I assume they're talking about the new Ravenwing detachment.
It lets you take 6 of something instead of 3 of it.
It lets you voluntarily run less Outriders. You can say, I'm opting to run even less than them now.
Yeah, that's true.
I could have 6, and I'm still choosing to have 0.
Yeah.
What does the battle line keyword do? It lets you have more than 3 squads of Skitarii Vanguard. I'm pretty sure that's all.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
And Gargoyles and Termagants.
True.
Nice.
It increases the range of a lot of models that you can take from 0 to 3 to 0 to 6, which I guess is something.
Yeah, Gargoyles being battle line is an error, but whatever.
Idris asks, any plans on doing a math/stat/pop probability focused spinoff? I will answer this question. We did originally have ideas about doing that, and instead we've done it as randomly. We've done it as bonus content when
also articles, right?
Yeah, and articles. So we've been writing more articles. The ELO one is the most recent one. There have been some. Well, that's more math, I suppose, than anything else, and some stats. There are some historically. We put out a few Math Hammer articles and a few other things. We had a math person episode around the time of WTC, and I'll probably do that again when people start locking down for WTC. People start going to do stuff. So we'll probably do some more of that. Beyond that, we're working on some other things. We might do some more learners and stuff like that as things go on. We've discussed a little bit of that in the background before, but that will be mostly for dashboard related things for learning how to use it. Frank says, first off, I've only made like 20-ish Marine lists since last episode. I'd hardly call that a spiral, but I digress.
That feels like that's my
No,
fault.
it's just a looping line. It's not a spiral.
The 1,000-yard stare out of Frank when Angron one-shot his Redemptor and his Redeemer at the same time was I was like, ooh, sorry, buddy.
Ooh, you can measure 6 inches, you know.
Given that we saw some more off-meta combinations of Marine chapters / attachments, Stormlands DA, Iron Storm Wolves, go X and 1 at Nottingham, do you think that there's more life in these underexplored detachment combinations that might potentially see more play post-late? Stormlands Templars has been surprisingly fun, and I can't stress this enough. Maybe good in my limited experience.
I mean, we can test your limited experience anytime you've got an hour to drive up to Rogue State, Frank. You live very close to me.
That is the best invitation you can probably receive.
I am sure there are builds in that detachment that'll be great when everything else sucks.
We just need, like, I don't even think that's necessarily the case. I think Templars have enough, like, random good data sheets that you could probably make an army out of that, out of just having, like, good detachment rules. Unfortunately, I just think Gladius does that better than Stormlands does.
Fair. Innes, how many Stormlands / Stormraven lists should we prepare pre-slate?
None. Not a single one.
Post-slate, though.
Look, you can run Guilliman Stormlands and give both 2 Stormravens -1 to hit and wound and shooting. You shouldn't, but you can.
Yeah. That sounds awful.
If you run Calgar as well, you can Armor Architect and -1 to hit and wound them both every turn.
How many months do I have where I have to care what Innes plays? 2? 2.
We should put a
We're
countdown under you. Like, that should be your title from now on, Anthony. We have a
month till Pyra.
Yeah, 2 months till Anthony bullies Innes about what he plays, because it affects him now.
Evan asks, I'm a fairly typical 2-1 RNT, X and 2 GT player looking to get better, and I know I just need to play more games to do so. And that the best way to do that is probably TTS. However, I often feel weird looking for games in competitive areas, given that I'm inexperienced with TTS and only an average player. How do you recommend setting expectations before a game and/or searching out games while still learning the competitive ropes?
You are the overwhelming majority of the TTS users. That's the easiest way I could put it. Yeah, like most people that play TTS fall in that exact bracket.
If somebody's really good and still looking for random pickup games, like you're going to be like, they're going into it with the expectation they're not going to catch somebody who's like, you know, they're not going to catch Liam VSL in a random pickup game.
Though you might.
You might.
In our Discord.
You're not going in with the expectation.
Yeah.
So just do it. It's fine.
Yeah. And if you pick up somebody like Liam VSL, you can learn a lot from those matchups still. Like,
and it'll
even
be
if
fast.
You are like, yeah, maybe. Who knows?
You might have time for 2.
And honestly, you just have to kind of put yourself out there a little bit for TTS games. In our Discord has a pretty good TTS community with people looking for games most days. So, Evan, since you're in our Discord, just post that you're looking at the TTS folks. Somebody will pick you up on it most likely. More general question is, what's the most skill difference you can have between players in order for a game to be, in quotation marks, worth the time for both players? Or is a rep always worth the time no matter what?
Almost always. Unless you go into it with like stupid list mismatch as well as skill mismatch. If you come into it with at least a reasonably relevant list, you'll get something out of it as a game. And if you're just looking for a random pickup game, it's fine. I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah.
All right. Adam Thylacine asks, Uprising Adelaide, the big event in Australia, is using no Dawn of War or Hammer and Anvil missions. Only Search and Destroy, Crucible of Battle, and Sweeping Engagement. What do you reckon about that?
Fucking heroes, cut that sweeping engagement and Search and Destroy will be great.
I mean,
just Crucible.
Search and Destroy is fine sometimes. It just depends on the rest of the mission.
Come on, World Eaters player. You can't honestly believe that.
I mean, my army is definitely the exception rather than the rule when it comes to that mission, but yeah.
Oh, man. Idris asks, what are your thoughts on using D8s / D12s in 40k for certain set roles like Blood Tithe, Fate Dice, etc.?
Sounds like I'd have to bring a whole bunch of extra dice to an event, and I can't really be arsed.
What was the question?
It's like
adding extra dice
D8s.
to 40k, like D8s and D12s.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Don't do that.
I think like that would have been interesting to do in like, if you're going to reboot like the whole game from scratch, maybe. But I think at this point where it's like every 3 years it cycles into only slight differences on a D6 based system, that it's kind of too late now to really do it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we're D6 gamers. Like, unlucky. No touch.
Yeah. In our Sean asks, in our current hellscape of playing 400 power level lists, how would you feel about giving non-stat line buffs to weapon choices that are strictly worse on a lethality threshold? Adding stuff like stealth or sticky objectives could make these more a meaningful side grade instead of just strictly worse. I assume he means like, why take not multi-meltas on Lehman Russes essentially, and things like that. Like give buffs to war gear that you usually just wouldn't take because it's just not as good.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to live in a world where like most war gear was useful. It just is not the one we live in at all. Points was the way to fix it, and they decided that was for. Yeah, I don't have anything really nice to say about like the rest of where I'm going with this.
All the points grinding that is an old world now, boys. Good luck.
Yeah, I can't wait to play vampire counts. Let's go.
The second they drop high elf models back on the store.
I mean, I'm going to play with Sigmar models, but yeah.
There are no high elf Sigmar models, so.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
There's a whole faction of high elf Silkmar models.
No, they are not. Nope.
They're with techless and everything. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the checklist is even there, bud.
Those are not high elves. Sorry.
All right. Jason Seibel asks, have you played a game recently where an opponent has made a move that's made you thought at first made 0 sense, only for next turn it made perfect sense and it was brilliant?
No.
A lot of people make really stupid moves and hit 9-inch charges. I don't know if that counts.
I recently made a mistake that just made 0 sense at the time and also made 0 sense later.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll do something that's like, I just did it because I could, and it just so happened to like link close a screen. That happens sometimes, but that's about as close to that as that gets.
There's not a ton of like, it's really hard to be like, wow, that was brilliant in a game of 40k. There's just not that much available in terms of like expression beyond it.
The only time that happens to me is when I watch Liam play.
There's times when you walk by that man's tables and they don't
actually watching Brian use the last 5 minutes on his chess clock is the closest I've ever been to being wowed, because that man could stretch 5 minutes on the chess clock into an hour of gameplay. Dude, and I don't know how.
Brian's got the fastest hands in the West. He like once he's going, he says this all the time, but if you're like right here, like you could never throw anything at Brian's face and connect. It'll never happen. He's on it. Like he'd be the world's best like Wing Chun practitioner if we could get him to do it.
So yeah, Brian using all of his time on random bullshit so that he can get to his 5 minutes, have his 5 minute speed up faster. Wows me every time.
Yeah, he'll shoot every pistol in an orc army just so that his last 5 minutes can be him getting a 20-0.
Yeah, it's really stressful to watch.
Yeah.
Sam Lemon asks, sometimes the event we are preparing the most for is a couple months away and or a data slate or two away. Notably, do you believe it is best to prepare in advance, i.e. not take Meta Eldar / CSM to a team's event pre-slate if you don't know it will survive post-slate?
Oh, no. Not at all. That is a terrible mindset that somehow propagated throughout the community, and I fucking hate that. You play the rule set you are given for the events you are going to. That's it.
Unless you're specific, like the balanced data slate is tomorrow and I have an event in a week that I want to practice for, like, cool, man, I get it. But if it's like right, and you're like, you're playing, like, there's no point in you playing the current Eldar build because it's not going to exist next week. Otherwise, just play the best list that you have access to get the best practice games you can. Focus on getting better at the game, and the list will come with it. It will come later.
Yeah.
Second question is, technically it is true that there are no professional 40k players in the sense they make a living wage off purely playing 40k. They make it via content creation is what's in parentheses next. What would it take, and is it possible for this to change in the future?
But I think this is like extraordinarily difficult for this to see change. You'd have to win with such like a breadth of consistency that it would be very unlikely.
Events would have to get a lot more expensive.
Well, or they'd like the sponsorship stuff would have to get a lot bigger, right? Like that's probably the way that it would go. But even then, right? Like you're talking about making a living, so you're playing like a tournament every single weekend. And at what point, what does like 4th place have to be for prize money for that to be tenable?
This way's
Yeah,
better.
like-
I'm okay with this way.
This semi-professional way that it's currently played is probably fine. It needs there are some things that need to be tweaked for quality of life things. Judging is one of those things that I think needs to be improved. And
Yeah, there's
some
like a lot of stuff that needs to change before it can be played for dollars.
Yeah.
But
the events that play for large sacks of cash are like pretty rare and far between at
It's
this
fun.
point.
They're fun
True.
one-offs rather than the thing you're banking your life on, which makes them a little less like immediately offensive.
yeah.
It's cool
Yeah,
to have like the one big event that pays out money and like it's a cool story and stuff like that. But it's also just like the thing you're doing for your hobby, and that's fine. That's chill.
Yeah.
When
I'm
it's
also
I need to win this tournament to make rent. I'd rather not have that.
Yeah, and I think it's like broadly fine the way that it runs right now. I don't think that it would be like super crazy. I also kind of love that like the prize from like the most prestigious tournament that we go to is this fucking thing. Like so
I mean, those belts are pretty cool though. So is that sword, right?
yeah, but that's not like the WTC, right? Those are like cool
True.
other tournaments, like Ines was saying. Like
Yeah.
I have a bunch of random cool trophies. I'm just saying, like the big one, right, is like a medal, or like Typhus was showing me like the one they got for winning in like 2013 or something, or 15, and it's like a square piece of paper that's like covered in dust in his mom's place or something. Like,
ETC prizes were not great.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
this is one of my favorite questions because I actually think that there are going to be some disappointed Drukari people come this preview this weekend. Jay asks, will Anthony sell his soul if Dark Elves get an Age of Sigmar faction?
yeah, instantly. I love Flesh Eater Courts a lot, but the way they've set up, the only way that Dark Elves can end up in AOS would mean that we'd have like a real issue on our hands if they came out and had cool rules.
Yeah, it looks. I actually think that there might be a Dark Elf being previewed in that preview image series that they've sent out. Because one of them looks like an Age of Sigmar model more than it looks like a Mandrake, unless they've changed the Mandrake like design significantly.
I mean, I'm also game for new Mandrakes. I am having my like Drukari collection redone, so
I hope
it's the Mandrake character, but not the Mandrake squad. They just bring out like whatever the guy like Cruelag Devile. So Cruelag Devile was a character in the 5th edition.
What?
There were more Drukari characters, and they had really funny names.
Yeah, Cruelag Devile, Duke Sliskus.
That's hilarious. Where is that? I'm super here for like a 380 point Vect model. Can we get that going again? That'd be hype.
If we could get the Dais of Destruction back, where it's just Vect on his cruise boat still, I would be down for it.
Like, that also works.
Because Drukari don't have a centerpiece model, like in their standard plastic range.
Nope.
Everybody else kind of does.
I mean, they don't have one at all. The Tantalus, I guess.
But it's a Forge World model, not a plastic one. Every other faction has like a centerpiece model that's a plastic model, basically.
Except maybe Cruelag Devile, also known as the Mistress of Skulls or the Emasculator.
Hell yeah, dude!
I love it.
All right, well,
it's just her.
Adam has another question, which is, there has been a bit of discussion about Marine Bloat and making the RGB Marines standalone books of Special Boys, which will never happen. Which chapter would build the most fun / interesting / comp? Take your pick a list. If you could use nothing except if you could only use supplement units, nothing from the vanilla codex.
Templars right now.
Yeah. I think it's just Templars because they're doing well.
They just have all the things too.
As Black Templar labeled, yeah. They have all the vehicles as Black Templar vehicles.
Well, they also have like a big stupid troop blob they could run if they want. Their elite infantry unit is extremely good. They have their own land raiders. They have their own they can do whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, like Black Templar infantry or top 4 Nottingham.
Yep.
What would GSC have to look like for Anthony to play them with no reservations?
So many questions this week. What would GSC have to look like?
People really just want to see you playing an interesting army for the first time in a while, Anthony.
Whoa! I play a very interesting army. How dare you? I carry the torch for
Wow.
my faction, unlike your bitch ass abandoning nids.
Woo! Dang.
Anyway, the GSC, I don't know. GSC melee GSC? Isn't that like they were melee GSC once upon a time, right? That was a real thing in a past.
Yeah,
That
like
was
time.
Muscle Beach, wasn't
8th
it?
edition, yeah.
Yeah. That would probably be what I'd want. Like basically what I want out of GSC to play them is also what I want out of Drukhari, which is like if there's like a spectrum that is like Dark Angels on one end as like whatever the fuck the opposite of like a glass cannon is, perhaps like a stone spoon. There is on the other end of the spectrum, I want that. Like whatever the logical extreme at the absolute end of that spectrum, like 6-up save, nothing else, big damage. That would get me to play GSC.
Anthony wants an
want somebody-
asbestos nuke, not a glass cannon.
Yeah, exactly.
I want somebody to model their Deathwing now to all just have wooden
Spoons.
spoons. Or
To be fair, we don't know what
spoons.
the next melee profile is going to look like. They might as well be.
Yeah.
True. Anthony, there's another question for you from Luke. Anthony goes to an
Jesus.
event tomorrow and has to choose between A, playing Tau, B, playing Imperial Guard, C, playing World Eaters into triple spinners every round. What are you choosing and why?
Oh, it's triple spinners. I have gotten Eldar and World Eaters close enough that I love to watch the Eldar players like sweat. It's my new favorite thing because the minute an Eldar player realizes they can lose a game, they assume they will lose a game. It's the best. It's the best. No, you don't have all the agency, bitch. Come here. Yeah, I love that. I actually like. I don't have anything against playing against Eldar a whole bunch of times in a row as Eaters. It's not favored, but it is fun.
Sometimes you just have to make people sweat, right? And that's good enough.
Oh, I adore it.
Because when people sweat, they make mistakes, and when they make mistakes, you can capitalize.
They
on them,
die.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ben asks, in the alternate universe where you were attending LVO this week, what would you have brought?
I would have brought the exact list that Jamie Beaton is running, and those are things that are related.
What is Jamie Beaton bringing?
The 1975.
No, it's
Oh,
it's
no?
it's CSM with like 2 Forge Fiends, 2 Accursed Cultist blocks, 3 Chosen, 3 Legionnaires. Like if I was going to LVO, it would be for the purpose of winning LVO,
I'd be playing CSM as well. Yeah.
and I would be playing CSM.
Interesting.
But that's
I
only
would've
because I
brought
wouldn't play Eldar. So
I would
otherwise
have
I'd be
brought.
playing Eldar.
I don't even think Eldar is the best chance at winning the event right now. I think it's too easy to step on the Necron's line.
I would have just brought World Eaters because I would have had fun probably playing World Eaters.
Not on LVO train, you wouldn't have.
I thought they made it better this year. Did they not make it better this year? Did
I
I
mean,
hear lies and
It's
propaganda on the
still
internet?
player place, dog. Like there's only so much better
That's
it can
fair.
get.
Apparently, they have decided to take this judgment token thing that was happening in chat, and they put up a selection of images for judgment tokens from featuring all of the hosts in our Discord chat.
Fantastic. And if you want to see it, go there.
If you want to join our Patreon Discord, you can see. Although they didn't pick my favorite for Anthony, which would just be Anthony leaning in real close to the camera.
I mean, there's got to be hours of me doing that at this point. That happened more often on Fight Club.
Yes, it happens a little bit more sparingly here. It's funny for me because we don't have more. We have a couple questions that I highlighted, but my younger brother showed my parents the podcast over a holiday break.
Nice.
And they were like, man, you touch your beard way too much during the show. And I was like, shit. And now I've been trying harder to stop myself. But it's funny that the picture that he used for one of the judgment tokens is just me holding my beard, which is true. That is my stress position, basically, at this point on the show.
Fair.
All right. We have 2 questions that I highlighted from chat. If you guys see a different one, that's fine. First one's from Red Rum, who says, Nathan, you really think World Eaters will get nerfs? Anthony telling me is wrong. And the answer to that is, I think the RTT data that GW, I think, uses in part for their balance slate indicates that World Eaters are our problem probably at some level of play.
I don't know.
I don't think they're going to get big nerfs. I think they might get like some minor tweaks that put the list over 2000, the 1975, and you might just have to change up a bunch of stuff about how you play that list.
My concern for Eaters isn't the like points so much as it is like if they decide that some of the mechanics need a smack. Because the thing with Eaters is that like they're not overpowered right now, right? They just aren't.
Right.
No metric will tell you they are.
I don't know, I've been playing them, and that's usually the metric that I look for to determine if an army is overpowered.
But there is an argument that if you clip the top, that they could be, right? Like one of Eater's bad matchups is CSM, even though they do have a reasonable win rate into Eldar, so they're not really being suppressed too much by Eldar. They, like, if CSM gets a lot worse, if some of the other stuff in the meta changes, like some of the Templar builds can be awkward for Eaters. If other things get hit, there is a world where Eaters could become too much, and they might try and get ahead of that 8-ball. How hard they run ahead of it is hard to say. The big thing with Eaters is that they exist on the knife edge, right? Like, it is very easy to make them bad. The army that runs no guns is inherently disadvantaged. Pretty straightforward stuff. But you know, we'll see how it all shakes out. There are certain things that I would like to see changed. Like Angron's res should probably be once per game. That's like an easy like softball change. Make people less upset. Frankly, if you're playing correctly, that shouldn't fucking happen anyway. Like, you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff with that.
Angron's
But like,
res is one of those abilities that's just kind of like, this data sheet probably shouldn't be in the competitive build. Just like
yeah, it's like
gameplay-wise.
fine that he's good, right? Like he's not, you know, because like the alternative to the only way to make Angron not worth running is to make other things in the book very good, right? Because he's the only fucking thing with fly. So, and in this edition, that matters a lot, given how much things can move reactively out of phase, so on and so forth. Screening is much easier this edition than it's been in the past. So, you need something with fly. That means that for Angron not to be run, you would need 8-bound to be like bananas. You'd basically have to incentivize the list building that was set up at the end of 9th. So you'd have to bump an AP on Berserkers, make 8-bound crazy. Like there's ways to do it, but like it doesn't make sense. I think you could bring Angron down back into like normal by just making his res once per game. It's kind of silly that it can happen multiple times, and I think it's stupid that it rewards you for playing badly, basically. Like if you need him to get res more than once, you are throwing. Like there's a difference between like using him aggressively with the expectation that he'll die and trying to bait it out early so you can get a res so that you can do things later in the game. Very different than just like, brah, he died, res, brah, he died, res. Like that's very different play cycles. So yeah, that's like something I would like to see changed.
And then the other question comes from Paint Celestine, which is my second question. What gives up more? Bring it down, VPs. 3 Paragon Warsuits or 1 Warlord Titan? It is 3 Paragon Warsuits, I believe.
I would be shocked if it wasn't, based on the phrasing of the question.
Yeah.
To be fair, you're going to play against all the Paragon Warsuits a lot harder to kill in the sense that they're on the table and can die. Whereas a Warhound Titan, like, it's already dead.
Yeah, it's never seen the field.
I played against one.
I've never played against something like that.
I played against one in an RTT. It was an interesting game. I won the game without killing a model to try and challenge myself.
Nice.
And then Murphy added a question to the Discord, which is, speaking of telling mom, because this is apparently, I forgot that my younger brother joined our Discord. My older brother is gifting me Tau. How do I beat him with Tau? He annihilated me with Angron last time I played him.
18 crisis suits. Go.
The thing with Tau into World Eaters is that you need to screen, and your screens have a bad leadership characteristic, and that makes that game really complicated. So if I figure it out, I'll let you know, but I haven't yet.
Fair enough. There are 18 crisis suits in the army that I'm gifting him, so easy and squeezy on that point. That's it for questions. I don't really see any more questions aside from somebody making fun of Anthony. So like Custodes Anthony, when he was talking about wanting an army that's like a asbestos supernova, maybe. I don't know.
Well, that's nothing like
Um,
Custodes. Custodes don't do that at all.
Yeah, that's like somewhere between a stone spoon, but the stone spoon hits melee armies extra hard or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a stone shield.
There you go.
It's a
Nailed
stone
it.
pike. It's a stone pike. You just run into it and dive. That's about it.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys want to walk us out?
This episode had a name, but I'm still not saying it. Nathan, you say it.
Cryptic, Canoptek, Conquests. Damn it. It is
That was the consequences.
Cryptic, Canoptek, Conquests, actually. I said Cryptek, but it was Cryptic.
That's a terrible episode title. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us for episode 75. If you enjoyed the show, do all the things that we said earlier. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us. If you're at a tournament this weekend, come say hi. Otherwise, good luck at LVO if you're there. I hope Sasha and Ben, Sherwin, I hope you both get smashed so you don't take Western Faction Marines off me.
Nice.
Yeah, good luck.
It's hard to wish bad things on Sasha. He's great.
I'm sure he is, but I hope he goes 3-3.
Nice.
Have a great time, everybody. Good luck. If you see us, come and say hi. We'll be back hopefully with Jeremy next week to do the talking about the UTC thing because he will probably have opinions that we would like to share.
Bye-bye.